I am the way. Follow me. I am a law keeper. I am a lover of Zion. I love my people, the Jews, but I also love the Gentiles, the Sidonians, the people of Tyre, the Syrians, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Egyptians, the Ethiopians. I love my people. I don't care what you call yourself. You take on my name when you come into my way, and you become a disciple of Jesus Christ. And Paul was under the influence, even so much so that Satan was all over this man who was raised up by the Pharisees as the number one guy that was doing the best work of persecuting those people who were disciples of Jesus, the people who believed in the resurrection. Breathing out threats, murder against himself, he went to the high priest and asked for letters from him, the high priest, to the synagogues that were in Damascus, Syria, up north, Golan Heights, up that way, so that if anyone he found belonging to the way sect, or the way, the resurrection way, both men and women, he might bring them bound back to Jerusalem to be judged, to be tried, and to be executed. And it came about that as he journeyed, he was approaching Damascus, outside of his jurisdiction. He was a rabbi coming from Jerusalem. He was going to find those Jews probably. He was most concerned about the Jews that were following the way, but I'm sure there were Gentiles there. He was determined to go there and get them. And it says here, as he was doing that, a light from heaven flashed all around him. Now, here you are, you're away from your homeland. You're Paul, you're angry, you're determined. You've got people around you that are helping you do your task. You've got letters from the high priest. You've got their guard. People with swords. People with authority. And as you're moving, all of a sudden, you are shocked to see light beams brighter than the sun beaming down on you and all around you. You're in a new place. It's kind of like in the movies when somebody's being beamed up into a spaceship. All of a sudden, a light comes down, engulfs them, and here goes the person. They're getting sucked up. Well, think of this as like a light beam from heaven, from the right hand of the Father, from Jesus' throne. Here, he speaks. It's a port. It's an opening. And Paul lands right in that spot, and it opens up for Paul. Now imagine what he feels. It says here, he fell to the ground in shock and awe. You want to talk about shock and awe? This is shock and awe. He has been personally contacted by Jesus Christ. This is very powerful. This isn't like anything that happened even in Pentecost where the whole room was stirred and everybody got, something, 120 people. Here you have Paul, one man, and all of heaven is stopping, as it were, and Jesus is focusing just on him personally for this brief moment in history. And Paul is the center of his attention. And he falls to the ground and he hears a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now, if I knew Hebrew, I'll say it in some kind of tongue, okay? Zolo, Zolo, Dolosinontorokontarebereka. This was not English. He spoke to Saul in the Hebrew language. All of you King James only people. King James was English, and he wrote an English Bible that we barely understand now in the modern day. And that's why we need to constantly work at making it more accurate to the understanding of the modern day person. All of you religious Pharisees that want to hold on to the old 1611 Bible. Come on. It's English. It's not Hebrew. It's not Greek. It's not Arabic. And Jesus is the author of the Hebrew language. Let's just say that. Because he was the Word of God. And he spoke forth and created the Hebrew language in the way of Moses, in the way of Abraham. It came about, as it were, an alphabet, 22 letters. And the Hebrew language was known among the Hebrews. And Paul was a Hebrew. And Jesus is a Hebrew. And he knows Paul's Hebraic ways. And he knows Paul's passionate heart to restore Moses and the Hebrew way. And he thinks he's serving Abraham's will and Moses' will and David's will. And so Jesus has to interrupt him, and I can imagine now that Paul's like, oh my goodness, this voice is Hebrew, and it's in heaven. Has he ever had this before? No. He's read Torah portions time and time again, memorized probably the whole Torah and the whole Tanakh, everything, the Psalms and the Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, you name it, books of poetry, Esther, books of history, Chronicles, Kings, Samuel, the prophets, all of it. He knows it, but he's never heard the Hebrew language coming down into his ear from heaven, speaking personally, saying, Saul, Saul, in the Hebrew word for that. I wish I knew Hebrew at this moment. And then, after that, he says, you're persecuting me. I am Moses fulfilled. I am Abraham fulfilled. I am what I promised to Abraham when he was going to crucify and sacrifice Isaac. I am the fulfillment of Isaac. I am the Sabbath day and the keeping of the Sabbath. I am that. I am the rest of God. I am the tree of life. I am the waters at Meribah. I am that manna that your fathers ate in the wilderness. I am that quail. I am that fire that consumed Elijah's altar there on Carmel. I am that Stephen that you saw stoned. I am in all of this. Why are you persecuting me, Saul? Why? That's the question. And he said, who art thou, Lord? And he doesn't know yet, but he's like acknowledging what? That he's the Lord, that he's the king, because light is beaming down on him. Power has come against him. Power that is so powerful, there's nothing he can do. He's flat on his face. For those of you who lead in worship, understand that if we were able to have this experience with Paul, we would be flat on our faces. Sometimes, all this is great, but if we're really in the presence, won't we be flat on our faces? Like John, like all the people that had encounters with God, they're flat on their faces before the Lord's glory. Here's Paul saying, who art thou, Lord? You are Adonai. You are Elohim. You are Yahweh. You are Lord. I know you. You're powerful. I believe in the one God. But who are you, my one God I worship? And Jesus says, I am Jesus. I am Jesus. So that means that Jesus is at the right hand of the Father. He's still Jesus. He's still a lamb that was slain. That means he's there. That means when he saw Stephen beautifully testifying of his truth in the Old Testament as he preached that final message before he was stoned to death, it says that Jesus stood up when Stephen cried out and he said, Lord, hold not this sin to their account. Forgive them. And Jesus saw that. Jesus saw that. And Jesus is right here dealing with Paul now. Not in Jerusalem. Not even in Samaria. But up there on its way almost to Damascus. Saying that Jesus is everywhere. And he's at the right hand. Most importantly, he is at the right hand of Jehovah, Yah. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. So what does that mean? Let's just stop and meditate, precious people of God. If you are a disciple of Jesus, when people say horrible things about you, when they curse you, when they beat you, when they ignore you, when they call you crazy, when they even execute you, who are they executing? Jesus. Jesus, as it were, dies again in our suffering. Jesus is so personal with his people that he aligns himself with them in their sufferings. That's the most powerful thing I can say to you today, is that if you're suffering today, dear people of God, know that Jesus is in you in your suffering. He's succoring you with the same grace he received from the Father when he suffered. It was fitting for the Lord to make the captain of our salvation perfect through suffering. In Hebrews chapter 2, it makes it very clear that suffering is the way of a priest. Suffering is the way of a worshiper. How can you really worship until you learn to act